Welcome to Black Tie Optional. I'm Sydney.
I'm Colleen.
Let's get into it.
I have a photo of him. He's holding her hands and he bows his head, and I think, oh, sweet, like he's praying. And then he starts wobbling. She's got her hand on his chest, like steadying him, and then he just drops. And I'm like,
did anybody else see that?
I'm like, first wedding, I have no idea what's happening here.
You're like, is this normal?
Does this typically happen? Is this just a part of the ceremony?
We are so excited for you to listen to this episode with our really good friend. We did have our first hiccup though. The first half of this episode's audio did not record. We were so disappointed when we figured this out, but we decided to use the audio straight from the camera to salvage what an amazing conversation we had. We talked about re-recording, but we really value authentic conversations that are not staged. So apologies for the first half, but in the second half, you have good, clean audio. Now let's see who our guest is.
Y'all are gonna die, but we've not been recording.
Are you joking? You're serious?
I'm dead serious.
That'll be the preview for the episode. Apologies to everyone who has to suffer through the audio in the first half of this.
Stop. It's so funny. I love it. So, everybody, if you don't know, this is BJ Matthews.
Hi, everybody.
So, BJ, you've been in the industry for how long?
Oh, since 2009, so 15 years now.
Okay, so tell us about you and how you kind of got started.
Perfect. So I am from the upper south central Arkansas area. Grew up in between Malvern and Arkadelphia. Got my very first film camera in 1998.
Ooh.
Yeah, my parents bought my sister a film camera. They bought her the one she didn't want. So instead of taking it back, they were like, here, you can have this.
Stop.
So I started my career the same way everybody does, taking pictures of my dogs and flowers and trees and houses in the back. So it was good, and I remember my mom came home after work one day, and she had gotten a roll of film developed for me, and she said, so-and-so at work said, you have a really good eye for this, you should keep going. And that was kind of like it for me. I was kind of like, okay, this will be something that I keed forever, So I kept the camera around. First digital camera I had was on floppy disk. That tells you how old I am. Had a beautiful start to it, just kind of picking it up around journalism in high school, which eventually led to me being hired for my first wedding when I graduated in 2009 for $50.
Stop.
Yeah, we'll save the full story for it, but it involves a groom passing out at the altar. My mom was my second shooter, and she didn't even have a camera. I just mostly needed like a moral support there. So mom was like following me around. She's like, "You think you should take pictures of this?" I'm like, "Yeah."
That is awesome.
The little pop-up flash on camera and everything, it was very harsh.
Where was this wedding? Like?
It was out in Bismarck. Yeah. So like outskirts of Arkadelphia.
Yeah.
Out in a cabin, and it was really hot. It was August. It was miserable. But I'll save the details for later because you asked me about fun wedding stories, and that one's like my top memory.
Okay, good.
And from there it ended up being family weddings. My second wedding I think was $200 for a cousin, and then got into college, started meeting people. They started trusting me with it. I remember the first time I booked somebody for $1,000. I called my mom and I was like, I'm pretty sure I can drop out of college now. I've got a firm career path. And she's like, maybe pump the brakes a little bit. Let's slow that down. It honestly just kind of snowballed. My professional career started after college, and I was just building my wedding brand alongside that until I was able to take it full time around 16 or 17. And then did that until 21 and decided to get out of it.
I dig it.
Get out of it then, but you're still in it.
I'm still in it. I've tried to quit so many times. I've announced I'm done taking weddings so many times on Instagram, but I just keep coming back. I mean, y'all know how hard it is to get away from it when you love it. So
It is,
And
and
you're good
it's
at it.
yes. Like it's hard for me to even fathom like being at the caliber that you are and being like, okay, I'm done.
that's so funny to me.
I know.
I feel like my best work is behind me all the time. I tell people that. I feel like 2018, 2019, 2017 range, I was creating some of the best work I think I've ever done. That was kind of my peak, I think. I was most inspired. I was getting to travel. I was getting to network. I was feeding a part of me, that we all feel whenever we're doing something creative and good. I've had a beautiful career. I've got to do everything I set out to do, sometimes twice. So I just think it's time to transition to something else, start mentoring newbies and help them know how to be successful and build something that will sustain.
See, I love that so much. So, speaking of mentoring, like, how did that come about? Like, did you have people reaching out to you? Did you put this out like, hey?
Never formal.
Okay.
I am not someone who believes that I can educate people. I think the people that I've had the blessing, I'll say, of mentoring have been specific to me. Like, I don't think I could have mentored somebody else. I don't think they could have been mentored by somebody else.
Gotcha.
Most notably right now, Faith Alexander, Sarah Tokai, a kid named Andy out in LA. He started in Washington State. We met. It just kind of comes up when people start approaching you and asking you, and you know when you're ready to do it. And I'm not someone who's going to be on stage teaching hundreds of people at a time, but one-on-one, I feel like I can tell people what I think is important.
Right. And I think too, when you've been in it, like you see things so differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, when my husband came and started like second shooting with me, like he never truly, I would come home and be like, hey, listen to what happened today. Like, this is wild. Here's what I got away from it, right? But then when people are in it and they see things so differently, and I feel like even the people that have made it big, right? Everybody still sees things so differently.
Absolutely.
So it's so cool to me, like you said, that you mentor people specific, right, to you. And it's so cool that you can open up to those certain people and be like, this is how I took this, or this is how I saw this, or this is how I read the light in the room.
Yeah. And
It's wild.
And that's one of the hardest things, I think, is reiterating that this is just how I see it. It's not the one way to do it.
Yeah,
It's not necessarily the right way to do it. I don't by any means think that anything I do is the right way to do it, but it has worked for me.
Right.
And that's what I tell people. I treat it like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Take whatever sticks for your business, and the rest just throw away. It's not useful to you if it's not going to serve you, serve your clients, serve the way that you operate, because you aren't me.
Exactly. Okay, so Sarah Togai, how did that happen? I adore her as a person, by the way, Sarah. I just think you're the coolest ever.
She really is.
And I love, like, seeing y'all's friendship and stuff, just even on socials. I mean, I've never met you before, but I know that y'all are close. You know what I'm saying? So it's going from, like, I assume y'all didn't know each other.
We didn't. So she shot a few friends of mine. And through that, I was like, okay, she's kind of talented. My Faith was at the time gaining popularity and able to shoot with me less and less. So I was like, I need somebody consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I like that consistency in my galleries. I
Yes.
like somebody from the ground, like when they're getting in at the ground level, I want to shape them how I want them.
Yeah,
to
no,
work for me.
exactly.
So that's kind of, like I saw Sarah kind of coming into this. She had a very good eye. There were a few things that I was like, okay, if she would just tweak that right there, she'd be a top talent in this industry.
Yeah.
And so I reached out like, hey, do you ever have any interest in second shooting for me? And she was like, hell yeah. So we shot our first wedding together at Goodwin Manor. And I remember it was just like shell shock for her to see a wedding that size. It was, because at the time I was getting some pretty decent sized weddings.
Right.
She was just like, wow, she almost accidentally killed Mr. Goodwin by slamming the door right in his face. So, I mean, it was instant. We had these inside jokes to laugh about our personalities. I mean, we fell in step so easily. So it was an easy decision for me to be like, yeah, I'm going to take you on. Like, you're going to stick with me. You're my little baby.
Right.
Come under my wings.
Right.
And we hit it off so well. And Sarah's just such a cool person. And what I love about Sarah, she's focused on the right thing.
Right.
She's focused on what her clients think. If she calls me in a panic, it's not because someone's getting more likes than her on social media, or she's not getting the interaction she wants and she wants to know how to grow her social presence. It's, I've dropped the ball on this way with my clients. How can I fix that? Or
Gotcha.
I want to do this better with my clients. How can I do that better? And so she gets it.
Right.
And I think that's a big prerequisite for me, because I don't want people who just want to be, like Instagram famous or something, because that's not what matters.
Literally.
And sometimes I feel like the Instagram famous, it's like, does that actually, like, do you actually book client? Are you actually booking clients just because you're internet famous, or are you booking clients because they love what they do?
And I'll tell you, I was a photographer before Instagram. I grew my business in like the height of Instagram, I think, whenever it was really the big platform. And there were what we call pods. Are you familiar with pods?
Literally, yeah, where you.
Oh yeah, and there's all these stipulations.
Yeah.
And,
So that was big, and workshop culture was booming, and so my social media grew pretty rapidly. I got up to like 20,000 followers. I think I have dropped back down since to like 11, because when you unfollow everyone, they tend to unfollow you back.
right.
But I was getting inquiries where it was like, are we gonna be featured on your social media, or
Stop.
are we gonna be put on your Instagram?
Stop.
Or after we shoot, they're like, hey, when are we gonna be on your Instagram? And I'm like, you're clearly looking for you clearly aren't here for the right reason. You clearly don't care about the work,
Yep.
what we're doing here. So to an extent, I think social media adds some validation. You know, if you have tens of thousands of followers, you're obviously doing something right.
Right.
Usually. And clients can't necessarily see past the smoke and mirrors there. So I think client-wise it matters, but everybody else doesn't care. If you're in the industry, you know that it doesn't matter.
Literally, and it's like I got on my stories the other night. It was like literally 1 a.m. and I just had this like, I'm sick of this. I am so tired of it's like everyone has a mask on. It's all about like like how you show yourself, I guess. It's not even about your work anymore. It's like, here I am. I'm so successful. I'm so busy all the time.
I'm featured.
Right.
And when the advertising feature is the feature and it's not a feature because of your work.
Literally.
I have big problems with that.
No, I'm the same way. And it's like, I'm so tired of meeting people. Like you, in your head, you're like, oh, I look up to this person in so many ways. Their work's phenomenal, yada, yada, yada. Then you meet them and you're disappointed. You're like, you are not who I thought you were.
That happened to me a lot in the 2017 era whenever workshops were happening, because I, with my friend Cody Harris, I don't know if y'all know him, Cody and Allison Photo out of Nashville, we ran what we call Forest and Falls. It was a huge retreat in Fall Creek Falls, Tennessee.
Okay.
And about 200 photographers came from all over the world. Literally, it was
That's
kind of
a
insane.
huge number.
Yeah.
And we hosted people like Sam Hurd and Gabe McClintock and Ben Sasso and Ryan Muirhead and all the big names at the time. Ryan and Sarah were there. But it was just like, all these people were so disappointing to meet in person because they were so mean and they were rude and they were not spending any time with people they were educating, and they were peddling the same talks they'd given.
Look at me talk. I'm featured. They asked me to come here and talk. Like,
here's how
me,
you can get featured in whatever the big wedding blog at the time was, Green Wedding Shoot at the time, or whatever that other one was that I forget. Shut down since because that's how much they matter.
Right.
But yeah, it's very hard to meet your heroes.
It really is, and I'm like, y'all are in this for the wrong reasons. Like, we're here to document people and their lives. Like, this is so important to them. It's less about us and more about them, you know?
Absolutely.
And I feel like social media especially has made people feel the opposite of that, you know? It's crazy.
I look at it as a 95-5. You know, 95% is for the couple, 5% is for me. So I budget my time wisely. I get what I need for them, and then I've tried in recent years to stop really overstepping and making it about me. So when you can tell they're kind of checked out from photos and they're ready to get to their party, I end it. You know, I'm not going to keep pushing because I want more and I want more and I want the cool photos. And it's been recentering, I think, after COVID. It's definitely changed the vibes of weddings.
For sure. For sure. And I feel like there's more pressure now. I don't know what it is. Since post-COVID, there is like this huge pressure to have like
TikTok.
It is TikTok. You're right.
The number of TikToks I get sent before a wedding of brides being like, I want this. And
It's kind of Pinterest on steroids.
it is Pinterest on steroids because the photos are coming at me 0.5 seconds at a time.
Yes. You're like, let me pause it.
I'm
Let me
like, pause and screenshot, pause and screenshot, pause and screenshot.
Yes.
But it kills me because they're showing me photos that are not at all the vibe of the wedding that they're having. It's all direct flash, it's all blurry, it's all Dutch angle.
And you're like,
let me not hop on my soapbox about it.
but I'm like, do you see that on my Instagram?
Yeah.
Like, do you see me actively post that? When people ask me to take a blurry picture, I die inside. Because how many years did you work on settings so nothing is blurry, so everything is crisp, you
And
know?
that's what, I harp on Faith and Sarah all the time. I'm like, you have to know the rules before you break the rules.
Amen.
Like, you have to understand the reason why you aren't using a zoom lens in all settings, and the reason why you're not using a 35 for all your vertical portraits, and you have to know that and then understand that before you can go and break that appropriately, because otherwise you're not doing the right thing when you break the rule.
Right.
And there's so much rule breaking without understanding the rules or the background or where we've been in the industry. But
Like the tilt.
yeah,
I was gonna say we were talking before, like how this boom of like photographers and videographers in COVID and post-COVID, it's almost like are all these trends happening just because, like you said, we don't have the education.
Was it an
first.
accident?
Like, was it an accident and it just caught on?
I mean, it has to be, but I also just think it's so easy to get into photography now. I feel like I came up in the golden age of wedding photography where there were no presets, there were no workshops, there was no education. You figured it out on your own. I had really good mentors. I came up alongside people like Whitney Bauer and Jessica Nanya, Layla and Lila, and just the big names that shaped our industry locally. And, like Aaron Wilson was a friend of mine, and the industry used to be so different. We would get together, and all of us were at a house, and
Kumbaya.
yeah, I mean, it was, and they were sharing, and they were teaching, like, how do you do this? Oh, I'll show you. Come here, or how do you edit this specific thing? Let me show you. I'll do it, whatever. And so the industry grew so rapidly, and now there's so much free knowledge. There's so much available for photographers to hop right in and look like they can do a very good job.
It's wild.
And so you lose that tenure requirement, and that's one of the things I harp on, again, back to the mentoring thing. I'm like, you can't come out of the gate charging $4,000 wedding. You're not worth $4,000. You're not providing a $4,000 experience.
Exactly.
And I think that is lost because of the education. I think people think that it's easy to show up to a wedding and take all the trendy shots, but you don't know everything else you've got to know. You don't know what's actually important. Like
Well,
those family photos.
Not only that, but then it's like creating the bond with your client to be able to authentically like represent them in photos. Like I feel like that has gone out the window. I mean, even when hiring like a family photographer for my own family, I've had problems where I'm like, I feel like I gave you 1,000,000 shots and I got one. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I don't feel like you authentically represent it or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's just like the emotional connection is gone and it's all about snap, 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 snap. Am I going to get 10,000 photos back or are you only going to give me 50 of the best ones kind of thing?
Mhm.
Like people want quantity over quality, I
I see
feel
that
like.
with mini sessions all the time.
Yes.
Which I'm bad about mini sessions. I'll give you everything that turns out. So
I'm
some
the
of my
same
mini
way.
sessions are getting 200 photos, some are getting 100.
Yep.
And I try not to duplicate too much, but I'm like, this is such a memorable time in your lives because it's usually little families.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want you to have every variation of this photo
Same.
because I know how much you love this child.
Exactly.
And so most of my families are people that I've known for 10 plus years. They're past clients. They're starting their families now. So I have that connection already. I have that
Exactly.
deeper understanding. But you're totally right. People aren't investing that time getting to know people, so they're hitting the trendy spots, and it's not at all true to the client, I
It's
think.
Well,
not.
like you said, if you can tell your clients over it, you're not gonna force them to get that shot.
Yep.
So you could have that shot for Instagram. You're like, oh, we're done. No, that's fine. Like if you wanted these, you got these, like great.
5 years ago, I was totally different. I'd have been like, no, you're gonna want this later. Let's go. Come on, let's go get the hero
It's
shot.
kind of hard though, like even from videographer standpoint, we'll have couples like who are checked out once you get to couple shots, and I'm like, that's my bread and butter. Like what else am I gonna do without a couple shots?
Yeah.
So
Have a whole wedding film of everything else but them.
And that's why you hire professionals who can keep people in a good mood all day long.
Yes.
Because I tell brides all the time, I don't care if you hire me, I don't care if you hire somebody else, but whoever you hire, you've got to like.
Amen.
Because you're not interacting with anybody except for maybe a wedding planner more than your photographer. And on wedding day, it's definitely your photographer that you're interacting with.
oh, and we're with you all day.
On your hip, like
Yeah.
I'm sure if you don't like me, I'm annoying on wedding day.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not gonna let those moments pass. That's my
Right.
job. That's why I'm here. If I take it too seriously, I can deal with that.
Well, and like for me too, I used to be, I didn't want to bother people. Is that so
Yeah,
silly?
no, I
Isn't
feel like
that
we're all
silly?
timid when we start out, and we're like, and now I'm like, hey, come on, you're gonna want this.
Right, right.
This is
Like,
important.
it's so
Push through.
silly. Like even I've seen a growth like in my own work, even over the past couple of years, being like, okay, you've got to get out of that mindset. Like you are going to follow them around all day long. You're not, oh, well, if they feel like you're on top of them and smothering them, like you don't want to miss something. Like yesterday, for example, I had a wedding, Catholic wedding, very family oriented. During the reception, she continuously, instead of sitting with her husband, she sat with her grandmother.
Mhm.
And her grandfather had passed. And the sweetest moments, I could cry talking about them. Like her grandma kissing her on the shoulder and like touching her face. I mean, just sweet as can be. And had I been nervous about smothering them, I would have never gotten that.
Remember,
Back to like the mentoring thing. So what made you, instead of being like, okay, let me mentor, because I know people that mentor like tons of people at once, right? Versus like, let me just kind of narrow it down to like this one person right now.
right? I believe that just goes back to what I said initially. With I don't believe I'm a photographer for everybody. It's kind of like a client situation.
Yeah.
I don't believe I'm a good fit for everybody, nor do I believe that everybody that needs to learn how to be a wedding photographer can learn from me.
Perfect.
They've really got to align. They've got to shoot like me, I
Right.
think, because I can't teach you how to shoot like Aaron Wilson, which is a question I get a lot. People are obsessed with Aaron Wilson,
Well.
and they're like, hey, I know you're friends with her. I know you took a shot with her. Can you tell me how she shoots? I'm
No.
like, she shoots like a normal person.
Yeah.
But it's
That's
like,
wild.
she just sees things differently than me. So like, if
Exactly.
you want to learn how she sees things, you need to be mentored by her, because I can't teach you that. I wish to God I had that.
Right.
If I could look at the world like Aaron, I'd be a happier person as a photographer. And I don't have the time. I think you need to invest the time. You need to be available. You know, when there's an issue for your mentee, you have to be able to answer the phone. You have to be able to help them through it.
Exactly.
If you have 50 people calling you,
How?
because new photographers are needy, and not in a bad way, but like there's so much to learn
Yeah.
to do it well. And whenever you're wanting to be top of the industry and you are wanting to know what separates you, I'm like, it's all the little things you do. It's every little tiny detail that you're looking at in your business that you think don't matter, because people can feel perfection.
Yes.
So whenever they're interacting with you and you're giving your client experience, that's what you have to be focused on. It's all the tiny things, and that's what's going to set you apart. It's not the photos you take on wedding day. I mean, yeah, that matters, but that develops with time. But
Right.
the business side, the interaction side, the experience side has to be learned, I think.
I agree. I would totally agree. So what would you say has been the hardest part about the industry?
Oh my gosh.
I know it's a hard question.
Trends. I've been through a lot of trends.
Yeah.
Maintaining your voice as a photographer while adequately providing client with what they want, I think is the hardest part of being a wedding photographer.
I agree.
Because people don't always hire you because they love exactly what you do. They hire you, they like your personality, they like your photos, all right. But they still have an idea of what they want, and it doesn't always align with what you do. You know, we talk about Pinterest boards and things like that.
Right.
So I think hitting client expectations every time is probably the hardest part of the industry.
I've done it for so many years. Has it been hard? Like, have you not wanted to hop on trends, but like, have you veered off and then been like, oh, I need to get back to myself?
Yeah,
Like, how
definitely.
do you stay true to yourself?
Ooh, that's a very hard one. How do you stay true to yourself? You know, I have this conversation with my friend Cody all the time about trusting the process, because there are times where your business will lull. You know, inquiries aren't coming in as often as you think. You have an editing crisis, so you think, I need to change everything about me right now. And Cody was very good about telling me, like, you need to just trust the process. This is gonna come. You know, you don't have to change everything about you to be successful. Your people are out there.
Right.
And so I think maintaining that inner voice, it has to be very strong, it has to be very loud. But I think that's necessary for kind of keeping your track and not getting too deep into the trends. Because I mean, I've participated in trends for sure. You know, I was right there in the middle of the Dutch angle in 2012. I have selective colored everything you could possibly selective color. I'm trying to think of everything else. I mean, I've never held a lantern on a mountain. I've wanted to so badly. I've wanted to.
I have. It was asked. I did it.
I mean,
They asked.
it's one of those things that I'm like, there's so many trends that I think are beautiful, but then whenever I see them posted 97 times in 1 year, it loses that allure for me.
Amen.
So I'm usually happy that I didn't participate. Right now, I think it's a little harder because everyone is maintaining that trend, that direct flash, that tilt, that very paparazzi style.
Yes.
wedding right
High
now.
end.
Yeah.
LA.
Very luxe, very glam. You know, everybody's a size 0. Everybody's walking across a busy New York street. Everybody's got this beautiful long flowing veil, and we're in the middle of Arkansas.
Literally.
People are getting married to barns.
Literally.
I'm sorry, I can't make that
Orange
happen.
barns.
Orange barns.
A recent bride
yes.
sent me a picture that she loved. She said, I love this photo. I want to do this. And it was a beautiful big bridal party. I'm talking 20 bridal party members. She had 2 on either side. I'm like, I don't know how to get your expectation here because you're not having the kind of wedding you want, I think.
Right.
And so I don't know. I want to participate in all the trends, but I keep myself centered with your people are out there, the people that just want what you do, who are not worried about what's going on at large in the world and want, you know, the social media, everything, photo. Those are my people, so stick to that.
Hey guys, just wanted to take a brief pause in the episode to tell you thank you for supporting our podcast. It would mean the world to us if you could subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on. Let's get back to the episode.
And he was like, I think I wanna do like some video, like highlight. Like,
Hell no.
we're not talking story, no, like some little highlight video stuff. And I'm like, you can learn that all by yourself. I'm not the one.
I videoed 2 weddings in my entire career,
And you were like, no.
and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Because I think
It's-
video is so much harder post-production. Like
I
in the
agree.
moment shooting it, if you understand and know
What you're
video
doing.
and you have a good photographer leading, cakewalk, I think. But the back end side of that, I shot in Colorado, so I was very lucky that the 2 weddings I shot were out of state. They were beautiful, so you could really rely on like scenery to guide the.
Yes.
It's
So-
kind of like you can't make it ugly.
Yeah, well, I hired. Do y'all know the Montoyas, Keely and Aaron? Well, Aaron is an incredibly talented videographer out of Northwest, and they were going to be in Colorado because it was their anniversary. So I was like, please second shoot this wedding for me. He's like, oh yeah, sure. he got there and he pretty much had to lead the whole day. He's teaching me like how to do settings because I'm like, I think I'm gonna do this, and he's like, oh no. He looked at my gimbal that I had balanced perfectly to sit upright whenever it was off, and he was like, no, it's not supposed to sit like that when it's off. So he like flips it all around and does it. And so whenever I'm editing this video together, it's all this beautiful, beautiful footage that he shot just perfectly exposed. It's wonderful. And then you've got mine that looks like you shot it on an iPhone that's like whipping around and it's like jarry and shaky. It's just like, I'm never doing this again.
It is so hard. That's like, I feel like it's so underrated. Like, people truly don't know how much goes into video.
No, I think video should be making more than photo.
Well,
Oh,
but like, yeah,
100%.
we're second. I feel like video overall is because it was like second tier.
Video's still new. It wasn't until probably 2018 or 2019 that I even started having videographers in my weddings.
I mean, true.
Like it took a long time, and Arkansas is always way behind the curve. We're at least 2 years behind every trend. So it may have hit the industry at large earlier than that, but really that was when I started seeing people come around, and there are still so few videographers in Arkansas.
Yes.
Like, especially videographers of quality.
Amen. How do you struggle with the work-life balance?
Ooh, I have struggled and struggled. So whenever I was probably at my peak was when hustle culture really hit the market pretty hard. So it was, the Hans were teaching their hustle culture class, and you'd go and you'd learn how to book 100 weddings a year. And I kind of fed into that a little bit. So in 2018, I booked 45, which was, it's just too many weddings. I mean, that's...
Ask her how many she has this year.
How many do you have this year? You're going to say 45?
No, more.
52?
Yep.
60.
60? Why would you do that to yourself?
I don't know. That includes elopements, though. They're not all like full-blown weddings.
That's still
I
time
know.
away from anything else you want to be doing.
In my defense, we're building a house. We have a lot of things going on right now.
I understand hustling for a cause.
For a cause. And then I have said, like, next year after this is done, like, you will not catch me doing this again.
Yeah, just make
So
sure you stick to
grateful
that.
to all of you that have hired me for your weddings. I'm so excited. But
Yeah, no. Luckily, my 45 were all full weddings, so it was not any interlaced elopements. It was stupid. I took on too much, but it was my first full year of just being a photographer, so I was terrified I wouldn't be able to pay my bills otherwise. So I took on absolutely everything that came my way, even if I thought they weren't a good fit. I think of the 45, 22 were out of the state of Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
wow.
So I used to travel a lot, thankfully, because of the workshop network. It got me friends in other
Okay.
places, so they referred me to good weddings. So I got some good travel out of it, but I was spent. Like by the end of it, you think 45, and very few of those were double weekends. So it was of the 52 weeks I had that year, majority of them were taken. So I missed, family gatherings. I missed my niece's birthdays, and that was kind of the year that I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do 45 a year. I don't want to have to do this. And I had trouble understanding what was enough, because if you're a photographer, there is enough. You don't have to have every wedding. You don't have to make six figures. You don't have to do everything that comes your way. There is a specific amount that you need to survive, or that you want to live comfortably. And then everything outside of that, I'd suggest getting rid of.
Amen.
Work-life balance for me looked like hard implementation of I do not answer emails or phone messages after 8 o'clock. I don't shoot more than 3 times a week, weddings included. My priorities changed in 2017. I got into a relationship, and so that shifted everything for me. If I was still single, I'd probably still be working around the clock. But
Gotcha.
I don't want to do that. I
Right.
want to have a little family. I want to sit at home on the weekends and
Absolutely.
get bored. For a little
Right.
bit. I want to not think about editing
What
photos
is
every single
that?
night after
Like-
work.
What is being bored?
Right.
Yeah.
Because when you're bored, you're like, oh crap, I'm not done with that wedding yet.
I know, and I think about it all the time. I'm sitting at home and I'm like, man, I don't want to do anything, but I need to edit. And I say that at least 4 times a week. So I have editing days, and to make sure I'm not overloaded on editing, I edit like 100 photos a day. I try to on my editing days so that I'm consistently finishing galleries.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, I try not to work. I try not to open the computer. I've probably been a very bad vendor to hire, because I take at least 48 hours to answer emails now, and the world has not burned around me.
Right.
So all of you can know that. You don't have to answer within 2 hours. People are generally, I think, a little more lax. Obviously, you're going to lose some people if you're not instantly answering, but those aren't my people.
Amen.
So
We took
that's
it-
my work-life balance.
We took a trip. Well, it wasn't a trip. We had a wedding. And I always take my laptop with me, and I did not take my laptop this time. And Zach had to do the rehearsal dinner, and then we went to do the wedding the next day. And I texted him. I was like, I'm bored. Like, what do I have to do? Like, I'm not used to just like
Sitting.
what's on TV.
hmm
Like, there's just
I feel like that's just the nature of the world now, though. Like, can we agree?
True.
Like,
I
as
mean,
a whole, it's like go, 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 go. Like,
Oh, yeah.
people don't stop and think really anymore. It's very bizarre.
I have to catch myself all the time. My friends will tell me something that they love doing, and I'm like, "Oh, you can make a lot of money doing such," and they're like, and I'm like, "Actually, don't monetize it. Just do it for the joy of it."
Yes, my husband has to remind me of that a lot because I'm a very creative by nature person. So like I love to paint, I love to do all this other stuff, and I'm like, I could sell that, and he's like, no, stop, just enjoy it. Like,
Do
do
you
it.
really want to fulfill 300 Etsy orders next weekend?
Like, what is wrong with me? Why
No,
am I
I
like
mean,
that?
yeah, I feel, yeah. That's,
But I think that is creative people as a whole, right?
Oh yeah, I said the other day I need to find another source of income because like if I'm stepping back from photography, I want something that's easy to make a little, like a couple extra thousand a year if I want. And then I was like, just stop.
Right.
Like enough is enough.
Right. Like,
Breathe.
right. Right. I don't know why. I guess everybody just wants to be a hustler these days. It's like that's everybody's motto is
I
like
think you're just
hustle.
looked down on if you're not. You know, my family always
Yeah.
called me lazy because growing up as a creative, I didn't want to go out and do everything all the time. Sometimes I just wanted to sit and I wanted to daydream and think about what I wanted to do. I had a big imagination. And so I think part of that, you know, that family trauma, you know, somebody calling me lazy, I overwork myself now to
Yeah.
compensate. And I said something to my dad the other day about being lazy, and he's like, well, I'd say lazy is probably the furthest thing I'd consider you right now. Like, do you ever take a day off? And I'm just like, all right, so perception isn't everything, I guess. I guess I had that wrong, you know, like, I guess I'm working myself for no reason now, not to prove anything to anybody but myself. So
It's weird, right? Yeah. It's a weird
I
thing.
think that's just being self-employed too, because you're not like that.
it's
financial
feast or
secure-
famine.
Yeah, like you're not.
Which,
the
you know,
401k,
I work
all
at the
things.
Realtors Association now, and I think I've fallen in line so well with realtors because I understand their world.
Mhm.
Like, I was a realtor for a little bit during COVID because whenever all my weddings disappeared, I was like, oh, I got to do something.
Right.
The industry was booming, so I hopped in, and I learned quickly I didn't want to be a wedding, or I didn't want to be a realtor because, oh my God, my phone rang 35 times the first day I listed a home, and I called my broker and I said, I don't know if this is every time, but I'm never doing this again.
Yeah,
I don't want
one
to answer
done.
35 phone calls in one day. But they are, you know, they work around the clock and
Right.
they are dependent on their own and they don't get paid unless a deal closes. And so I'm like, I relate to you. I get you. I get your mindset. I get your hustle. I want to work to make your life easier on this end, which is why I love working at the association. So
Yeah.
we aren't here to talk about the association.
I mean, we could. We
Yeah.
could just
No,
veer
I
off
mean,
right now.
I think that's, good. Other vendors listening, it's like sometimes you do have to pick up another job.
Yeah.
You know,
I
to
had a
have-
lot of shame around getting out of the industry because I talked so long about wanting to be a photographer. You know, it's everything I wanted, and then I hated it whenever I was in the mix of it.
I think that's
Um,
normal.
And I guess hating your job, you know, is typical. And by and large, I loved being a photographer. I still
Right.
do. It's the reason I'm still doing it. But I mean, you get a lot of guilt whenever you look to transition into something else, and you get a lot of guilt whenever you're not, you know, busy enough to maintain it just with photography, and you've got to have a side job. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Relish in it.
Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had multiple talks about like you going on a wedding day and they're like, do you do this full time?
Mhm.
It's like the
Oh
first
my
question.
God, it really is the first.
It is. It is. And it's
How long
like,
you been a photographer?
Yes.
Like you don't know what you're doing. I mean,
Really?
My personal favorite question at weddings. You get anything good?
yeah.
Nope,
Nope.
Everything's bad.
Not a
I don't
damn
know.
one.
I think my favorite comment ever is your picture or your camera takes such good pictures.
I say thanks. How did everything it knows?
Swear. I'm like, that hurts. Just so y'all know, if you're a client listening, like that hurts if you say it's just my camera that takes good photos. Just saying. Okay, so if you had advice for anyone just starting out, what would it be?
I thought when I read this on your list, I was like, what a good question. I think focus on what matters because it's going to be when you're building and you're trying to get your name out there, everything is social related. So you are looking to grow your following. You're looking to get those numbers up. You're looking at superficial things to get your name out there. But whenever you are booking clients and you're turning galleries around, your only concern should be how your clients feel about that gallery. The people that pay you money are the ones that are paying your bills, and that should be your focus. So my constant reminder to people I have a mentor is focus on what matters on a wedding day. No matter what else goes wrong, if you're nailing the basics and nailing the important things, the rest doesn't matter.
I agree. I mean, if you're just producing good work, like that's going to carry you through.
And hell, it doesn't even have to be good. Y'all know that sometimes our worst photos are the ones that get chosen for profile photos.
Is that not the craziest
It's
thing?
the emotional connection will always outweigh any of the technical flaws we make, and I have to remind myself of that constantly. But yeah.
Do you ever get like so blinded by the technicality that you forget to just create? Like, is
all
that
the time.
okay?
I'm sure Colleen's shot a couple of weddings with, I guess, one now, two coming up in May.
Yeah.
she's seen me kind of probably get in my zone where I'm just hitting, the high points, and I'm so in my process that I'm not thinking outside of that, and I'm like, I just need to nail this, nail this, nail this, nail this. So I've tried to, same thing I preach to the people I mentor: slow down, take a breath, step back, and think, how can I come at this a different angle? How can I do something fun? Because, man, that also leads to burnout whenever you're just doing the same poses, the same shots, same place every time. So slowing down helps with that.
Yeah, I agree. And like anytime on a wedding day where I'm like ahead of schedule and I'm looking down at my watch, I'm like, okay, I have 20 minutes. What is something new I can do? Like, what's something I've never done before? Because I have 20 minutes right now to do anything that I want to do. It could, if I'm in the middle of bridal portraits and I'm done, I could be like, but there is this groom shot that I've always wanted to get, like I'm going to take this 20 minutes and do something with it. I'm not just going to stand. Because I see that a lot where, we're ahead of time, so we're just going to sit. We're going to look at our phone. We're going to whatever. But, like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm on somebody's watch right now. Like, they've paid me for X amount of hours. Like, I'm on their time. What can I do during this time kind of
It's
thing?
that 95.5.
It is. It really is. So, do you have any cool wedding stories you want to share? Like a wedding day that you'll never forget?
Yeah, so I'd say my very first wedding was one that I would never forget. It was at this tiny cabin. It was, close to 100 degrees, insanely humid. It's Arkansas, and it was just immediate family. And so my cousin, it was one of my cousin's best friends, so she had gotten me the booking, and I'm there, and nothing is going according to plan.
Right.
There's no planner, obviously, because there's 15 people there in total, and they've paid me $50, so they're certainly not listening to me on the day. They're like, who is this 18-year-old yelling at us in the front yard about light right now? And so I'm walking around and I'm snapping everything I can, and the groom shows up, and the groom is incredibly hungover. He's pale, he's sweating, he's in a full suit, 3-piece suit. And so the whole day he's like, I'll be fine, looking like he's about to puke at all the moments. And little did we know he was going inside and continuing to drink. And so,
Are you kidding?
no, I wish I was. So we
In
get
August.
yeah,
Oh my
in
gosh.
August, in a 3-piece suit, in 98-degree humidity.
Oh my god.
So he's elsewhere. The bride comes down. They're standing there, and I have a photo of him. He's holding her hands, and he bows his head, and I think, oh, sweet, like he's praying. And then he starts wobbling. She's got her hand on his chest, like steadying him, and then he just drops. And I'm like,
Did anybody else see that?
I'm
Am I
like,
the only one?
first wedding. I have no idea what's happening here.
You're like, is this normal?
Does this typically happen? Is this just a part of the ceremony? And the bride's just looking around like he's a little hungover, and the groomsmen are like laughing at him, and they're like picking his little limp body up and drag him over to the steps, and they sit him down, and they're like fanning him, and he comes back to, and they give him water, and he's just like, oh, I just went a little too hard last night. And I'm just like, this is wild, and the bride's just looking so annoyed. And I will never forget that, because it was such a hectic moment in my career, because it was the very first time I'd ever seen a wedding happen, and the groom just.
This must be normal.
But outside of that, I've never had any real like wild stories. No runaway brides. I've had moms that were a little too attached to their groom or to the groom.
Yeah.
I've
Why
had
is that a thing?
I've had brides, like accidentally dump blue Listerine down the front of their dress 5 seconds before they walked down the aisle, which was one that I thought she wasn't going to walk down the aisle, because I was like, she just red her dress. She's not doing it. It dried clear, so that was.
Side note, if you drop Listerine on your dress,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, but I'm talking, she was about to walk down the aisle. She did a little swig, Mr. Mouth, all down the front of her dress.
That would be me. That would be me.
She was horrified. I'm sitting out there 10 minutes into when the ceremony should have started, and I'm like, this woman ran away.
Yeah.
Like, she's not coming. Because, like, occasionally a family member would pop their head out, and they're, like, calling other family members in, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Something happened. Yeah.
What
she's
is going
gone.
on?
She's gone. And whenever the bridesmaid walked back, I was like, oh, this is it. I'm about to have my first runaway bride. But no, she made it down the aisle.
So do you have like a wedding in your career where you're like, I've made it? Like, this is the wedding. Like, I've made it.
In a couple ways, yes.
Okay.
Because, I had some big goals. So, like,
Yeah.
whenever I shot my first big, like, mansion wedding that really invested in the details, and I had good, like, style. It was basically like a styled shoot on a wedding day.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is it. I've made it.
Mm-hmm.
2016, I was like, I can quit now. Or it was more of a belief that every wedding's going to be this good.
Yes.
And I didn't think about, bill payer weddings, where I'm just taking them because I need to pay the bills, and I'm not necessarily connected to the aesthetic of their wedding day or anything. But I'd say that. And then probably my first big travel elopement.
Yeah.
I got booked randomly. Somebody found me on the Knot and booked me to come out to Oregon, and shoot in the Columbia River Gorge. And it was during the eclipse that was happening in 2017. And so the bride
I remember these.
she had to leave me her personal car so that I could get somewhere, because there were no rentals in the entire state because they were in the totality zone. So everybody was there. And I was just like, like I was going up and my dad was like, "Oh, are these friends of yours?" And I'm like, they had no idea who I was until they found me online, and she followed me on Instagram, and it was kind of like, wow, someone across the country found me.
Yeah.
So that was a big moment like that. But I've had weddings, I think, more so where it felt more like this is just what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Anything I've ever shot on the West Coast has felt like that.
Right. You're like, these are my people. This is where I need to be.
Anything in the mountains, I'm just like, this is where my heart is. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Not so much in the barns, but I'm a firm believer that you have to love weddings if you're going to have longevity in this industry, and you have to love, and you have to love the interaction between people, and you have to just fully embrace that.
You have to love people.
Yeah, because you meet 10 different personalities on a wedding day.
That is no lie.
But, it serves you well whenever you look to transition out of photography. You are coming out of, and I believe this fully, I'd hire a wedding photographer almost just about anybody because you've been running your own business.
Mm-hmm.
I know if you've been successful, you have a great personality because you have to if you're going to succeed in this industry.
Right.
And you have good conflict resolution because there's no shortage of it.
Oh my gosh, that's no lie.
Well, and like you said, you have these weddings that are grand and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But then the next wedding might be the complete opposite.
And you have to make them look the same.
Yes.
Make them look the
There's
same.
something-
But, and I tell Sydney all the time, I'm like, when you're editing, it's almost like more of a struggle if you're not like, this was so creative, like just feeding you. But I'm like, but they want the same.
Quality.
And that's
And they
one of
deserve
the little
it.
things I tell my mentees all the time. I'm like, that's like, you have to make this backyard wedding look the same as you do this $100,000 wedding.
Mhm.
You have to give it the same attention because these people have paid you probably the same amount of money.
Yes.
Like, you don't get to be like, I'm gonna take the day off because I'm not really connected to this wedding. Like,
No,
you're
you
gonna
have
feel
to- you
that,
have to
but you have to perform. You
power
have to
through
show
it.
up, and you have to give them the respect that they're giving you by hiring you, and you have
Round
to give
of
them that
applause.
same attention.
Literally. That is like
Well, thank God we're recording this time.
but that is like the one thing I will say I think that I'm the most passionate about is I see people blow other people off because they're not their ideal client. That's just business.
The ideal client doesn't exist. I'll just go ahead and put
I
it out there.
swear. Thank you for saying that because that is one thing, educators all day long, they want to harp on. Hire your ideal client, your ideal client, your ideal. I'm sorry, but like, not everybody's going to be your cup of tea, right?
No, and they're just telling you to discriminate against the weddings you don't like.
And that's terrible.
Yeah.
Someone has to shoot their wedding.
I swear. That's just one of those things grinds my gears.
A wedding hot take, if you
Yeah.
will.
Oh.
Listen, if y'all ever do a hot take episode, I need to be involved.
I mean,
I'm
we
ready to
can-
talk some
yeah,
smack.
We can just talk a lot of smack
I was gonna
right
say,
now.
You don't have to say what venue, but do you have like one venue that you're like, I won't even work there?
Oh, we've
anymore?
already had this talk.
It's one that Sydney shoots often because I'll tell you, the first time I ever went there, I thought, let me research this venue and just look at what I've got. And I found one of Sydney's weddings there, and it was beautiful. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. I show up, and I look around, and I'm like, how the hell did she do that? I'm
told
like,
me that, and I'm like, what?
I'm working around this light. I'm looking at this
Yeah.
direct sunlight coming through a 40-foot tall window directly at me. And I'm like, how is she getting things so creamy? How are things so, like, no. There are certain venues that I've blacklisted that if they come in, I'm suddenly unavailable.
Same.
But same. I mean, and one of them, like, we worked together, and it was just Hot Springs.
yeah, owner ruined it. No, like I'm
It
like,
was
oh,
bad.
sorry, your wedding's there.
There's-
So sorry.
It was.
Does it start with a?
That's one of them. But,
Yeah.
but
Let's cut that out.
yeah, we'll just cut that out. We don't
Leave
want
that
to.
part. I like found this on Facebook and of course a group message.
My
or
jaw
group
dropped.
thing.
So just.
And I was
just
like, I'm gonna
warn you.
blind read this to him and just like see his face and see what he thinks. Okay. It says, wedding photographer question. Is it common for wedding venues to charge a vendor fee to vendors couples if they are not on their preferred vendors list? I shot last weekend and the venue did that to my clients. I believe they charged them $250 for using me, someone who is not on their preferred vendors list. And now they are using my images, likely screenshot from Facebook or Instagram. Normally, I wouldn't care if a venue did that, but they charged my clients money for having me be the photographer for their wedding.
I'd tell them if they wanted to use my photos, they could pay my clients whatever the clients had to pay them, and they'd have the usage rights for them.
Is that not
Isn't that
wild?
crazy?
Oh yeah, that reminds me. There's a venue, a very prominent venue in Little Rock, that every time they have a wedding, they make the photographer sign the contract that they own the copyright to the images. And every time I send it back and it's strike through, and I'm like, I won't sign it until you remove this. We go over this every single time. Take this out. That's not legal. I'm sorry, you can't do that.
That is great.
But yeah, absolutely not. I think preferred vendor lists are great for like wedding planners, but for venues, I think it's detrimental. And I don't even necessarily love them for wedding planners, but I understand them because you need reputable vendors. You need people you trust that you know are going to perform every time. And I get it. I get it. But for a venue, what are you doing?
And charging of all things. I mean,
Yeah.
they're
Oh my
charging
God.
so
To
that
put
you're
a charge on
hoping-
your couple for that? Absolutely not. Like, we're in a service industry.
Yeah.
Even as a venue, your overall goal is the client's happiness.
Right.
And if the client's happiness means them bringing in a photographer that you don't know that might be better than anybody on your preferred vendor list, why the hell would you charge them?
And like my thing too is like, I mean, preferred vendor list, like I'm not gonna shame it because I'm on a couple. But I think they're good for people that maybe aren't in the scene and they're like, hey, these people have shot weddings here. But like in all honesty, go to socials and you can see all of these people that have photographed this venue. Like the venue's gonna post the images, right?
Yeah, and they're tagging them on Instagram. Look at their top photos.
Exactly. So it's like, go through and look there. Like, why does there have to be a list? But yeah, when she showed me that they're charging, but I've heard that. Obviously not around here. See, I didn't even know that about a venue around here having that. Am I surprised? No. But
It definitely wouldn't be once you know what venue it was.
probably. But it's just crazy to me that there are venues that think, oh, well, you had pictures taken here, so I can use these for whatever I want to. And they don't even reach out and ask.
And 90% of the time, I'm going to let them use them for free because I don't care.
Same.
I'm not God. It's way more trouble for me to go and set up an invoice for you to pay me for like 5 photos that you want to use.
Yes.
And I don't even know what to charge for that.
Exactly.
I'm like, I just don't care about things like that. I'd rather
Right.
you're going to put my name out there. That's going to get me more business at your venue. If I liked
Yes.
it, I'll give you the photos.
Amen. I'm
was
so
saying-
with you.
I remember I will never forget this one time a planner like went off on me because I did not tag her. But it was because it was such a bad experience that
Oh no, I'll blackball some planners.
Can
I
we-
will absolutely keep the gallery from them. I won't share it. I'll block them on socials.
Yep.
If you disrespect my clients, first of all, I had a planner most recently last year. I shot a little lesbian wedding, and at the end of the wedding, she was sitting out by me, and she's like, it's been a really hard day pretending like I'm okay with all this.
What?
And I'm like, I was just kind of like, what do you mean? Like the music's not really your style because they were kind of getting down. And she was like, no, I'm very Christian and I just don't really approve of like same-sex weddings. I'm like, first of all, you're telling a gay photographer this. Secondly,
you took on the wedding.
yeah, I'm like,
no
did you
one
not read the names?
forced you.
But so I was just kind of like shell shocked, first of all, because I'm like, I haven't had this happen in a long time.
Right.
And then I like went to the videographers and I'm like, did I just misunderstand that? And they were like, did she really say that?
Can I hot take?
Always.
I'm just going to be blunt. I'm sorry, but if you're not okay with that, you shouldn't be in the wedding industry.
I say that all the
Because
time.
to me, if you had a storefront and you had a gay couple walk in, are you going to tell them to leave?
Exactly. I mean,
It's the
unreal.
same thing. That is like something that literally burns me from the inside out. Like if you're not okay with love all the way through, it does not matter what that looks like. You have no business being here.
Yeah, you're not the one getting gay married.
Right. It
You're
has
not
nothing to
showing
do with
support.
you.
You're literally just photographing some people in love.
It's so wild to me.
It burns me. I recognize that I am a little more biased than most people would be on that issue, but I don't. We're in an industry centered around love. Like, how could you possibly? And this couple came to me from a photographer pair who are very popular in this area, who told them, we probably couldn't serve what you want. Here are some people we think could take care of you. And I'm like, I hate that you're popular.
Yes, because that's just so ugly to me.
Yeah. But you know what?
Knock it
That speaks
down.
more about them than it does anybody else, and I'll just let them be.
That's right. You're exactly right. And sometimes that's just kind of the best way to handle situations like that. I have to remind myself to keep my mouth shut a lot.
Oh, me too.
I would probably be what's it called? Canceled.
Oh, yeah.
If I could sit here and say all the things I actually feel. But we don't have enough time for that. So okay.
Ending. Do you want to just end with like post meal?
Yes.
Do you have like a post meal that you love after weddings?
Oh,
working
McDonald's
holiday?
always.
Okay, what's your order though?
I get a McDouble, large fry, and a large sweet tea.
Okay, I love it. Do you eat cake on a wedding day?
No, I don't eat at weddings.
None.
None. I had a horrible experience. Okay, so let me tell you.
Yeah.
We're sitting. It's to set the scene. 2019.
Okay.
I am in New Orleans.
Oh.
I drive 7 hours back to shoot a wedding at Carter Farm in Benton.
Yeah.
I'm shooting this wedding. It is the hottest day. There is no air conditioning at Carter Farm, and they are serving some off-brand Mexican food
I'm scared where
that's
this is
been
going.
sitting outside for probably 3 hours at this point. My second shooter dives right in. She's like, I'm so hungry. And she's no longer in the industry, so like I can tell the story.
Yeah.
And 30 minutes later, she looks at me with the most like pale, sweaty face, and she's like, I need to go to the restroom. And she was gone for the next 4.5 hours. Missed the entire last end of the
Bless
wedding.
her
Like,
heart.
yeah, and she was just so sick. And I luckily, enforcing my rule, I was like, I'll nibble on some cheese dip, and I'm not gonna like eat because Mexican already, funny tummy.
Right.
Yeah, no. And from that moment on, I was like, I won't eat. Doesn't matter. Like, I'll eat a roll occasionally, but
That's scary.
the fear is horrifying to me.
I honestly, I've never had that experience, but I did have a thought recently. Like, what if I was at a wedding and ate the food, and people got like,
Or because a lot of times, like when you're in the bride's room, there'll be like little snacks and
but they've been sitting out all day.
All day.
yeah.
I don't trust it.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
You won't catch me. Like, if I'm eating, it's because I brought my own food, or like there's a roll.
I was gonna say,
I'll eat rolls.
what's your wedding day snack?
A roll?
A roll.
It's pounding water and rolls.
There you go.
And if there are no rolls, I'm just kind of SOL on a wedding day. But my second's always the one that goes through the line. They're like, I'm starving. You're not going to get anything. I'm like, no, but grab me an extra roll if you go through the line.
Yes, I love
That's
it.
funny. It's like in your contract, you must serve rolls at dinner time.
Honestly.
I
No,
swear.
and I'm not one of those people that has like, you have to feed me. But
No, me either.
all my clients are so like gracious about it. They're like, did you eat? And I'm like, no. And they're like, go eat. I'm like, just
You don't
don't.
understand.
Yeah. It's a choice. It's not your
Yes.
food options, I promise.
Yes. I swear. Well, I think we're good.
14
That's it.
seconds to spare.
Okay, so where can people find you?
Just mostly on Instagram at BJ Matthews. That's the only place I exist anymore.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
Well, thanks for coming on. We're like
Thanks for having me,
honored.
guys.
For
This
real.
is I'm honored. Jesus, I'm so excited to see where y'all go with this. I'm
Same.
so sorry I forgot to hit record on the
Oh, you're
first
fine,
half of
you're
this
fine.
episode.
It is so good.
Yeah.
Y'all blame me, not them. Subscribe, like,
Yep.
all the things.
All the things.
Share.
See you next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.
As we finish this episode, we want to say a big thank you to all of the support on our podcast. You can find us at Black Tie Opt Podcast. We are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Thank you so much for supporting our podcast.